are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hey everybody, I'm Graham Nolan. Welcome to the best Star Trek show on the internet on this stardate 2507.09. We are in the third season, episode number 59, and tonight we're talking about the Enterprise incident. It was written by D.C. Fontana and directed by John Meredith Lucas. On January 23rd, 1968, the USS Pueblo, a so-called communications monitoring ship, was attacked by the North Korean naval vessels and Russian-made MiG jet fighters. The Koreans claimed the Pueblo was in their territorial waters, and when they boarded the ship, they found the captain and crew destroying electronic equipment and top-secret papers. The 82 survivors were interrogated and often tortured for 11 months. This was referred to in the press as the Pueblo incident and was the springboard for Fontana's story. She asked, what if the Enterprise trespassed where it shouldn't on a secret mission and they were caught? The story has a great premise, but is, in my opinion, executed poorly. Joanne Linville plays the Romulan commander, a part originally written for a man. And I don't believe for 1 minute she could command a Romulan starship, let alone a fleet. Her romance with Spock is so forced, and Nimoy is so underplaying it that it comes off as unbelievable. Shatner also serves up a side of ham playing crazy Kirk in the beginning. There are too many instances that require the suspension of disbelief. You know, in science fiction, you have to expect a certain amount, but when it starts to add up, it gets to the point where you're like, come on. For example, the Romulans wouldn't have taken any enemy's communicator when they came on board, as in Spock. You know, he calls the captain, they track it, and he hands it over. Why would the commander wrap her arms around Spock as he was beaming out to become a prisoner of the Federation? And speaking of transportation, how could they beam Spock out when the Romulans clearly would have had their shields up? And for that matter, how could Kirk beam over without triggering some type of intruder warnings? Star Trek had long established you can't beam in or out with defensive shields up. I can't take a transmission out of a Subaru and put it into and make it work on my GMC truck. Yet Scotty, all by himself, mind you, due to the budget and not being able to hire extras, retrofits the cloaking device into the Enterprise, a completely different and alien technology. They didn't do guest star Joanne Linville any favors by dressing her in that heavy material that made up the Romulan uniforms. She looked much better when she put her comfies on to seduce Spock. Now, to be fair to D.C. Fontana, for whom I'm a huge fan, the whole not being able to beam over or back with the shields up was covered in her original draft. It was the interfering hands of Fred Freiberger and Arthur Singer that created the problem. After Kirk's death, Spock, in the original outline, after Kirk's death, Spock returns to the Enterprise as its new captain. He orders the ship to stand down and cancel the call to battle stations. With the weapons deactivated, there would be no reason for the Romulans to keep their shields up. The lowering of the shields would have allowed Kirk to beam over. How this would not trigger a intruder warning, though, is anybody's guess. So there, my friends, is our captain's log. This one's going to be fun to talk about because we have some people that love it, and like me, some people that do not. So let's bring in Aaron's right of statement, which can only go 20 minutes, Aaron.
I
So
know. I've only got about 20 minutes. Okay, but other than everything you just said, is pretty good.
except for that stuff.
Except for that stuff.
Yes.
It's
Now,
pretty good.
Sub Commander Balls likes this episode a lot, I think. What is your take, Sub Commander Balls?
I like that you're addressing me as that.
Hey, man, that's what's on the screen.
Oh, God. Well, Sub Commander Balls feels that Sub Commander Balls says, like, the reason I agree with all of that, those ridiculous premises, bar a couple. I love the Ian Fleming, James Bondish sort of vibe going on. And it's the closest we'll get to seeing Spock be like James Bond with his dialogue with the commander, the things he's saying and the way she's so just wetting herself over him, like everything he says and his demeanor. It's just so. I mean, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but
you don't want to sound Ronish.
Polish, perhaps.
How do I sound like myself? Like I'm not being myself while being true to myself. Just the way he handles her cracks. I'm not saying it's well done. It just cracked me up through the whole episode. I was just laughing at everything he was saying. When he says stuff, he's always picking up on these little cues.
Yeah. Wouldn't an hour do just as well?
Yeah. To seduce him, he's like, and also would the guards be invited? And the guards are sitting right behind, and that big one's just looking at them both like nodding,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole episode
wants to lay a little track tonight.
Yeah. And the whole episode is dripping with like this idea that Spock's gonna bone her. And she wants to be boned by him through the whole thing. And it was just cracking me up through the whole thing, And then she whispers in his ear. And then the only thing that would have made it better is when she said, I want to go slip into something more comfortable. And finally, she came out with a freaking bustier and like a leather, like a leather dominatrix outfit. That would have been brilliant. But even when she gets up to go to the other room, it's just unbelievable. Like Spock's sitting there, she's like, let me go put something more comfortable on, the typical cliche thing.
Right.
And the camera follows her and she gets up and she turns and her ass cheeks are right there under that miniskirt and those black underwear. I mean, because it raises up. Like she's all laying down next to him and she's basically just begging him to just attack her,
Right.
And, talking about how, Vulcan women aren't as hot as Romulan women. And then she's like, let me put something better on. She gets up and turns towards the camera and literally her skirt had been raised up from getting up and doesn't fall down. And you see her ass as she walks into the other room. So it just cracked the whole thing. Cracked me up. That's why I love it, because I love the whole James Bond vibe in a way. And then there's Kirk doing he's comes in and he's, so the problems I have with it. Well, the first technical problem I have, do you want to add in? I don't want to.
No, go ahead. I'll after you're done, I'll
all right.
Throw in a few.
One of the technical things I can't stand about it is that every time they show the Enterprise, dun 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 dun,
oh,
dun, 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 dun.
That music, yeah.
Oh my God, it's so grating, and it always makes me think of this with those kids.
Bonk bonk.
Dun, dun, no, with
next week.
That's next week.
Yeah, next week's, because they resort to that this season. I noticed that this season has a lot of episodes with that in it. Even in the Spectre of the Gun, they have a little bit of that, and it just annoys me, that particular soundtrack.
There's some different musical cues in this season. There's like I don't know if it's a flute, like it goes woo, like when they're doing that. It's really really weird.
Yeah, so exactly. And then so it's a trade-off in a way because while we get better sort of effects with the Enterprise, like I still again, like we talked about last week, when you see the Enterprise sailing in through space, it's bigger and grayer and just feels more majestic, something about the effect of it as opposed to the blue model. This feels more real to me. But then they bring it back down a couple levels with this new music that they're using. Which I don't care for.
Yeah.
The other major problem I had with it is Spock lying.
Yes.
Supposedly Vulcans don't lie, and he says they don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So he gives away that Kirk, but then he lies while he's saying he doesn't lie by saying he's that Captain Kirk's insane, which he clearly knows he's not.
Right.
And
the whole idea that Spock could be a part of that subterfuge is sort of a stretch that because originally it was supposed to be Kirk and McCoy get the ears and they go over together, and Sarek was supposed to be in it, his father. But then they figured, well, it's going to cost them $3,000 to get Mark Leonard, and that would
$3,000. Wow,
yeah,
big money.
Yeah, but $3,000 in 1968, it was probably.
I know, but it's still by any standard, it's still so cheap.
Yeah.
For an actor had already been on the show, but anyway, go ahead.
And then it would take away from the things that Spock needed to do from their character, so they jettisoned that idea. But this is the type of episode where you've got all these Romulan ships surrounding the Enterprise, and you've got Kirk who beams over there, and he's got to find this MacGuffin, in this gigantic ship which he doesn't know anything about, right? And he runs into what? Two guys? There's like 500 people on this ship, and there's no guards, no nothing.
He beams in, and the guy just happens to come around the corner. Like within
one
the same one guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's Centurion or whatever he calls him. And the timing of it is really hokey.
Yeah.
The other hokey bit in it that drives me nuts is the fact that that Nomad and Sargon had a baby.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it was.
It's like somewhere along the way, Nomad mated with Sargon, and that
became the cloaking device. Yeah,
which was already established in Balance of Terror. I know it's a better technology this time around, but they don't establish that in this. They just say, Spock just says the Romulans have developed a cloaking device. They don't say, they've evolved the cloaking device from Balance of Terror. So that's a huge mistake right there.
Yeah.
So are you saying that in this episode, it's like they're finding out about a cloaking device for the first time?
The way way Spock says it, it makes it seem like that.
Yes.
But it's really supposed to be that this cloaking, because correct me if I'm wrong, in the Balance of Terror, they could go invisible for a minute unless they fire their plasma.
Right.
But you could still track them, even though they were invisible. With this, you couldn't track them. So they evolved the
Yeah.
They don't establish any of that. They just say, Spock just gets up on the bridge and says, the Romulans have a cloaking device now. Because they're using Klingon technology. That's the other thing they don't really explain too well.
Right.
At all.
Right.
Why are they using Klingon ships?
Right.
It would have been just as good to have the birds of prey in there,
Yeah, because those are really cool.
Weren't they? They were using Klingon ships they'd already made, and they didn't have a budget to make more Romulan ships. I think as models is why they end up using the Klingon ships.
I think that's true.
Yeah,
I think that's true. But they also, I think they were establishing that now to increase the threat level, they're establishing that their two greatest enemies have formed an alliance too. That the Romulans and the Klingons
clearly they did. It just seems, I don't know. They should have. I think they should have made that a little clearer or something.
I think where this episode overall falls apart is I think there's too much going on going into too little time frame. Like you said about the romance. which I actually I found it kind of like Ron did. And I don't know if humorous, but enjoyable, because it was like, how are they working Spock's dialogue so that he can make her believe that he actually might be intrigued by what she's saying, but still come off like a Vulcan, you know? And I thought they did a fairly good job with his lines, even though they to hear him say stuff like that, was
And
funny.
she's so compromised by him. Like, as soon as, but you realize that right from the get go, because as soon as Sub Commander Balls looks off down the screen and sees Spock, all of a
Is that
sudden
his name?
he talks into his ear. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And she wants both of them to beam over. So
Well, that's the thing, and they really had an opportunity to make that because she says to him, she says something like Spock, like almost like she knew him, but then she backs off and says, "Well, just to see a Vulcan
she knew
brother."
she knew of him.
Right.
Yeah, I knew
But
of him. Yeah.
if she had known, I mean, if they'd set up the fact that they knew about him because he was a Vulcan and all this kind of stuff, and that she was obsessed with him before they even brought him on, that would have made more sense than her just getting him and he's a Vulcan, so
It
I
would
want to
have
make
been
it with
brilliant if he goes to her quarters and she's got posters of him like in sync, like he was a pop star. That's
and the same posters they sell at cons.
yeah. And he comes in and she's like, she forgets and she rips him down, puts him behind her back. Oh, sorry. Oh.
Well, I agree with Graham on this, that I didn't really buy her. She was too sentimental and she was too soft to be a commanding officer of a Romulan ship. At least the way she treated Spock. But then also when McCoy came in to check out Kirk to see if he was dead or not, they were all just too nice. You know what I mean? It's like these guys are mortal enemies. They should be a little bit rougher with them, and she's just very agreeable. And
yeah, I don't know. Well, I do like a couple of lines of dialogue she gave, like when she first meets Kirk for the first time, and he says it's an honor, and she's like, I don't think so. I mean, you're just saying that because we have to talk here. But so I thought there were a couple of moments she had where she exhibited some strength. I just think she was just so compromised by her attraction and which is a bit of a, I can guarantee that some feminist viewers might take real umbrage to the idea that she couldn't control herself in the presence of this male,
right.
she would be so compromised sexually like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she clearly was. But I do think it was fun to watch Spock use his wiles and charm the crap out of her. Like Spock clearly knows how to manipulate, and that's what was so intriguing to me about it. He was just like Sean Connery in a way. The things he was saying were
He's the opposite of Sean Connery.
Well, he's not as no, the things he's saying are very, very manipulative and designed to get her to be into him.
But that's so un-Spock-like, though.
That's I'm not saying he's exactly like Sean Connery, but he's Sean Connery-like in the dynamic with her, like the things he's saying. Doesn't have the personality of Sean Connery, obviously, or James Bond, but it's similar to me in the things he was saying. But anyway.
Yeah. I just felt that, I don't know if it was the lines or if it was just Nimoy thought the situation that they were putting Spock in was stupid. But I felt like he was so devoid of emotion that none of it rang true to me.
She was or he was?
He was.
But see, I don't, again, female nature is like that. They love a challenge with a guy like that who they can't get to emotionally. And I think it just, I think, if you look at past episodes with him.
Well, it's interesting. Like I said previously, he had to
walk.
Apples
like that with him. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he had to walk a very fine line, because anytime you're trying to put somebody on and they're trying to get you to turn allegiance, you got to slow roll it and act like, I'm not really interested in this, but okay, that makes sense financially, or some way that he could get sucked into this and still make it believable to her Whether or not you believed it is another story, but believable to her. And I thought that was kind of like him cold playing all of this, And so
Right. He's not giving her a read, so he just gives her little morsels to chomp on. That's what makes her jump and bite on. It's like a fish, fisherman,
Now, the thing about this episode, the reason I like it, despite its faults that we've been spending the whole time talking about, is it fits into that sort of novelty episode that I kind of like Omega Glory or whatever, that you guys thought, well, that's so stupid. But the novelty of it I found charming. And I same with you. And like Ron described it as a espionage or James Bond type episode. And it really was, Kirk gets the ears on, and he's got to infiltrate and steal the cloaking device, which is ridiculous. He just unscrews it and, takes off with it. But
weighs 2 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. But all that sort of aside, just the whole concept of the story, which Graham, which you in the opening said you actually liked because it is a great concept, that sort of carried it for me. And I sort of overlooked a lot of faults in this because I liked what they were trying to do, whether they successfully did it or not. I still like the idea behind it and what they were attempting to do. And so I gave it a lot more leeway than I would maybe another episode that was more standard fare.
It's also interesting because for once, like if you're going on the James Bondish thing, normally Kirk is kind of like the Sean Connery in these episodes. He's charming, like he did with Elaine of Troyes, Iran of Groinus. I mean, he's always charming like Sean Connery. So this was interesting to see Spock roll out these little seductive comments, to lure her in because she's, but she even says she's not like a Vulcan woman. She's emotional and sensual. She's trying to seduce him, and it blows up in her face. And she felt like, I will say, Joanne Linville is a great actress in this. She's very believable. The look on her face when she realizes she's been had, and the emotion she's able to convey with I thought she was very, very good.
I liked her in this too, and like I said, I just the unusual aspects. Like I said, this is more focused on how do you figure out a way for Spock to do something that he should not be able to do with the lying, and although he has lied before, someone pointed out in the chat, and it's that Errand of Mercy, Spock lied to the Klingons, telling him he was a trader of rare whatever trillium or whatever, which was a lie.
Yeah.
But so he obviously can do it if the situation is like the situation he's involved in, the assignment is more important than the truth.
Well, I think Aaron, as that other Romulan or that other Vulcan chick, what's her name? In the Star Trek 2. What's her name?
Oh yeah, Savick.
Savick. Yeah. Savick says you lied. He says I exaggerated.
Yeah, that's right. The thing that people got to remember too is the ability to not tell a lie is not something that's in your DNA. It's something the Vulcans have trained themselves to do.
It's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice they're making, and he's Spock's half human. So even though he's been trained on Vulcan, he still has a half human side that can see the logic of actually stretching the truth.
Right.
For a greater
a greater good.
Right. Yeah. So, but I did notice that. I was like, because I really wanted to listen to his dialogue in that scene where she says, "Is it true that a Vulcan you cannot lie or whatever?" And he says, "Yes, it's true." And I said,
"It's true.
It's true. It's true." Is it true what they say about it? It's true. It's true. Okay. So, but I was listening very carefully to how he worded things. That like, is he lying right now? But the thing about Kirk being crazy, he's clearly lying. Yeah.
Yeah. He full on says that the captain is insane. That's a full out lie.
Right. But leading up to that and around that, he was really sort of dancing with his words. So he wasn't telling a lie until that one.
Well, but again, he's manipulating the commander because he said he says, Vulcans do not tell a lie, so he's not going to say anything,
Right.
which lets her know that he would be lying.
Right.
He's doing it to manipulate again,
Right.
which is brilliantly logical to the way he's manipulating her. So it's pretty good, I thought. Pretty well done.
Yeah, I just felt like they needed more. If this had been like this would have been better as a movie plot, with the stuff that was going on.
Yes.
Then they could have stretched it out longer. It would have been more believable, and then we could have worked around some of these problems that,
Right. That Graham mentioned in his opening thing. I mean, if they had the time to iron all that stuff out, it would have been really, really excellent.
Yeah.
But because it is an hour show, and it's I mean, I enjoyed it nonetheless.
And they were trying to stay topical. I mean, the whole Pueblo incident was fresh and new, and they wanted it. They wanted to push this one through quickly rather than later when it might have just fallen off the radar.
Did I miss something? The Pueblo incident
at the very beginning. You did.
I turned it down for the first.
Because it's based on a real incident.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. It's the North Koreans attacked a U.S. ship called the Pueblo in 1968.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
And they claimed that they were in international waters, and the Koreans say, no, you were in our waters. And when they boarded the ship, the captain was destroying, electronic equipment and top secret paperwork.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome though that they made a show out of that. It's great.
Yeah, and the press called it the Pueblo incident, and so that's when actually Dorothy DC Fontana's original title was called Ears, Kirk's Ears, and then they obviously changed it to the much cooler Enterprise incident.
The other thing that should not be overlooked is, in a positive sense, is much like Spectre of the Gun, Scotty has another great line where he comes in and sees Kirk with a pointed ear and he goes, "You look like the devil himself. But as long as you're alive, what's it all about?"
Yes.
And it's just like...
But Kirk's it's like Kirk is playing like he's in theater there too.
Right.
Because Scotty comes in and goes, "Captain," and then Kirk kind of like does this little turn towards the camera, away from Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, he's trying to look at my ears like he's showing them. Kind of.
Right. Yes.
You look like the
But he's really turning towards the camera,
And how about with that lame ass kick he gives to that soldier?
Oh, I know, off balance and everything.
Yeah, he's off balance, falls backward, and the guy just goes unconscious. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that stuff drives me nuts.
Well, the efficiency of the fight scene, right? Got to get out the fight scene and get back to
like the one with.
All you know is jujitsu. You don't know Kirk Fu.
Yeah.
So, it's obviously Kirk Fu is more of a striking discipline,
You can only learn that in the 23rd century.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. And Scotty again, this is another great Scotty episode, even though he's not in it a ton, but he's like, is it going to work, Scotty? I don't know. It's the biggest guess I've ever made. And you go, is it? Is this the biggest guess right here? And then he's like trying to push the button and he's going,
yeah, just don't beam me into a bulkhead.
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been great. He beams that half Shatner's just hanging out of a bulkhead with the jig is up. Can
you get me out of here? Oh, so I like Scotty. When Scotty has good lines, and they use him well, like they did in this episode, I like it. He's up on the bridge, and McCoy's going, "Scotty, I need you to come down to sickbay." "Are you out of your mind? We're surrounded by Romulans."
I don't know what's more important than that.
He's a guy that we've said this before, but he's a guy that should have had command of a ship. That guy, he was only good things happen when Scotty's in charge of the Enterprise.
That's true. I always liked when he was in charge, but he would never have been, good captain material because he'd never want to push the engines.
Yeah, well, I think his
Warp
first
5's about his Warp 5's is all.
Get there when we get there, lads.
Yeah, he's too in love with the engineering.
Yeah.
He wouldn't care about the command. Sulu, on the other hand, that little gay bastard, he was
He wanted
dying.
command.
Oh my god! You know,
Both as an actor
even
and
as an actor, he
Yeah.
wanted his character to have command.
Yeah.
So
Well,
funny.
you guys heard that he tried to push that show was Captain Sulu's Adventures, and they didn't pick it up.
Sulu's Adventures. Oh, how painful!
Oh, the imagery.
Oh god, that's
Going
painful.
boldly where no man has gone before.
And you can, when he delivers that line in which one was it? Star
Then
Trek.
fly her apart. Star
The
Trek
Search
6.
for Spock, I think it is.
Which one?
Is it Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, when he's
Yeah.
like, "Take care, Captain Kirk." Like the way he says it, so
Oh no, that's
No, that's six.
Undiscovered Country. isn't it?
undiscovered
six.
country. Yeah,
When
yeah,
he's the captain and he's got like the Excelsior or something like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Yeah.
and he says, you know,
Take care, and they all look at him like stop
like I'm a
over-
captain now, you know.
Stop overacting, like
Yeah,
Well, he's
yeah,
got that part-
exactly.
He's got that part in the bridge where he's like, "Sir, it'll fly apart. Then fire apart."
Yeah, while he's got his tea, he's got teas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So ridiculous.
he's like the Chinese or Japanese Picard.
Yeah. Make it so.
Fire all
Yeah.
phasers.
Why don't we just surrender, number one, and end all this
Right.
again?
Come on, it's
Just
rum.
nonsense. Oh.
Lower your shields if you know what I mean.
Or Chekhov, he never actually
Jack off.
arose. He was supposed to be like this super smart dude. And they kind of explored that in the Kelvin universe films. That he's like this he was a youngster when he came on the ship, younger than anybody else, but he was super smart. And that was part of his character, but they never really explored that too much in the original
Well, is
series.
that why he was always referencing using Russia? Like, oh, this person was Russian, that person was Russian, because that's what he was sort of taught in Russia, like taking credit for these. What was it?
I think he was doing that just to goad them.
You don't think he really thought it? Like it was.
I think in the beginning they kind of were doing that as you said, a nod to the brainwashing that
right
Russia
propaganda.
Yeah. Propaganda, yeah.
Well, most of that was in the Trouble to Tribbles, right? Because they were in the conference room, Spock, Kirk, and then inexplicably Chekhov was there, and he grilled him on the history of and he goes, "Yes, he was invented by a Russian or whatever." And then Spock corrects him, and says, "No, ensign, it was this, that, or the other." And he's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure it was a Russian?" Or something.
Yeah, they used that though in a couple of episodes.
Oh yeah, the Garden of
Eden.
Eden.
Use it in Spectre of the Gun.
West Moscow.
Yeah, the Garden of Eden just
the Garden of Eden. That's what it was.
Yeah. That was
he had
one.
a love interest in Spectre of the Gun too, and it reminded me of the Eden one. Illunia Galioluna, or whatever her name is. Ilana Galiluni. Irina Galilulian.
You talking about one of the hippie girls from the Going Down?
Yeah, he had a relationship. He knew one of the.
Yeah, that's right. From a past relationship. That's right. Yeah.
Irina Galilulian or something.
Yeah, well, they were going down to Eden. Yeah, brother.
And her like old man was like somebody high in Starfleet.
Yeah, in Starfleet. Yep. And she was sort of rebelled against him, kind of like Jim Morrison and his dad.
And look what happened.
Who was Jim Morrison's dad?
He was a big time Army or Marine officer, like general or something.
Oh, he was in the military?
Yeah, he was in the military, and Jim Morrison, he wanted to go off and write poems. And so he had a contentious relationship, but later on, his father, after he died, he was, mourning his son and always talks. He never got over it because he felt like he was too hard on him. But he was so proud of him. He was like, it took him years to really appreciate what a genius he was. He talks about it, and that's what he hangs on to because of the guilt he feels. I think it's very moving actually to hear him talk about his son that way. So
He went to high school, and I had a choice going to one or the other high schools. I went to Satellite High School, but Jim Morrison actually went to Melbourne High School in Melbourne, Florida, where my buddy went to school. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think I knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's probably because you said his dad was in the military. There's an Air Force base right there.
Maybe it was the Air Force.
Yeah, Patrick Air Force Base. He was probably stationed there. Is probably why he went to high school there.
Yeah.
Did you guys think that what's her face? Who was the actress that played the commander?
Joanne Linville.
Joanne Linville.
Did she feel just a tad bit too old?
She had a little bit of aging on her, but it didn't bother me. I think that. Sorry to interrupt, Graham, but
okay.
To me it made sense because women kind of reach their sexual maturity in their 40s, whereas men do more when they're 18, 25 area. So it made it more believable to me in a way than a young chick,
Well, yeah, and I guess she's the commander, so you'd figure she probably wouldn't have got that position being, 20 something. No, I thought she was.
You're saying she fucked her way to the top?
Yeah, it took her some time. Well, she may have,
This is her when she was young, right here.
Yeah, no, I think she's attractive.
Yeah, I thought she was particularly attractive in this episode, but I did notice that she seemed just a tad bit older.
Yeah, she has a little chin going, a little double chin there.
Who's that actress?
She was 41 when she did this, I believe, this episode.
Who's the actress? She reminds me of an actress that was popular in the 70s.
This picture here?
Yeah, I can't think of her name. She was big in TV shows and stuff, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Not Bob Newhart's wife, not her.
Oh, Suzanne Plachette.
Yeah, not her. But Plachette. Something Plachette.
That's Suzanne Plachette.
Plachette was Bob Newhart's wife.
Maybe I'm thinking of Suzanne Plachette. Let me see if
that was Bob Newhart's wife in the show.
It was Suzanne Plachette.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't her.
She was also in what was that Western with James Garner that was really kind of fun?
Support Your Local Sheriff.
Yeah, Support Your Local Sheriff. Yeah.
Who was in that? Joanne Linville?
No, Suzanne Plachette.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, there was Support Your Local Gunfighter and Support Your Local Sheriff. She was in one of those two. I can't remember which one, but they're both, very similar films. Charming, funny, Brett Mack.
Was she in? I know she was in the Twilight Zone. Is this the one where they're all in that, like the clown, the army man, the ballerina, and they're in that?
Oh, that was an awesome one. That is her, I think. Is that her?
Well, this is her, but is this the episode? Because that's what it reminds me.
Like her. But I love that episode where they climb out and they're part of a Salvation Army thing.
Hey, look at this one here from the Twilight Zone.
She was in. That's the one she was in.
Yeah, but look at this. This is Morgan Earp from.
Yeah, it is
from Spectre of the Gun.
Yep. What's this shot with her and Shatner in a cowboy outfit right there? Is that Shatner?
Yeah, Shatner. Yeah, they were in two things together before Star Trek. United States Steel. Oh, here we go.
I wonder if
old Marshals Never Die.
If Shatner's the one who kind of recommended these actors, because the one before he was in with the World of Susie Wong chick there.
Yeah,
right.
And so he'd work with both of them.
A groinus of what's her name?
Yeah. Franz Newen.
Isn't
that Rod Steiger here?
Yes, it is.
I thought so. Interesting.
Rod Steiger wanted to be Marlon Brando so badly, and he just couldn't quite get there. What the heck is this?
That's
the old
Ian
librarian.
Wolfe? Yeah, that's Ian Wolfe right there.
The old librarian.
Yeah.
Look at Shatner.
Look at this one.
That's what he was wearing when I met him.
Who?
Who is this? Who is he?
What show is this? Look at the eyebrows on this guy.
Oh, that's
it sticks out like 3 inches.
gosh, who is that guy? He was he was in a television show. What was it?
Huh.
He
Let's see.
kind of looks like the guy that was
Albert
in
Finney. He looks like
Albert Finney. That's what I was trying to think of. Is that
Yeah.
that's not Albert Finney though?
No.
He looks like him though.
How do you like this 70s pendant right here?
I know,
Oh,
it's so
yeah.
groovy.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, it
totally
looks
into that turtleneck and the
satanic looking about that.
Yeah.
wonder what movie that is.
Yeah. Wonder if I can let's see if I go here. Might say.
I'm dying to know who that guy is. I'm sure he's he's been in a ton of stuff. He's a character actor.
Oh, Carl Betts. This is Richard Kiley. Oh, Judd for the defense. This is around the same time she made the Star Trek too.
How about that? Well, keeping busy on TV in the 60s.
Wow. Yeah, fun stuff. IMDb is like my favorite thing. After I watch a movie or something, I do a deep dive into the trivia and stuff of the movie to find out backstory and stuff. I just love to do that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something that Joanne Linville's daughter did where she recreated the role of her mom from this episode? And it was like,
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I was stunned because I was watching something on YouTube. It was like one of those Star Trek recreation YouTube shows.
yeah.
And she came on. And she looked exactly like her mom.
Yeah, there's a hold on, there's a picture here of her.
Yeah, they say Star Trek Continues.
Here it is.
YouTube show.
Hold on, let me just share this again. That's her right there with her mom. That's the daughter.
Look at her. Look at her there. I mean, you could. When I saw it, I was like, how? I'm getting feedback on this thing.
Yeah, she looks just like her here. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I never watched that show, that YouTube show.
We're getting echoes.
I know everybody's echoing now.
I don't hear it.
It's just me and Ron.
Here, I'll mute myself and you guys talk. See if you hear it.
Hello.
I gotta wait. He's muted. There he goes. Going down to Eden. Yeah, we're hearing it through Graham. Isn't that weird?
Close your butt cheek, Graham.
Okay. I will.
Hurry.
Fuck you.
Oh my goodness. Well,
all right, let's go. What do we think here, Mr. AA Ron? You got 20 minutes to make your statement, right of statement.
yeah, I'm gonna use my right of statement, and I want you to know that there's no regulation against the content of my statement. So,
all right, wasn't me.
Lynn, you're higher than a kite. We weren't echoing. It's somehow feeding back through Graham's thing. It's got to be his fault. That's how I look at it.
Nothing feeding back through my thing.
At his age.
Which, by the way, everybody is the same as his age.
Yes,
I'm the young pup on this show.
Yes,
Sub Commander Balls. Testicular tonic.
Yeah. On your Romulan ship, you'd have those rubber balls hanging down off the tailgate.
He's always walks around with him like swings them.
Yeah.
Nobody questions it. Just his thing that he does.
He's like the Kane mutiny, except he's got rubber balls and he's just spinning.
Yeah.
Gnip, gnop,
Oh, that's hysterical.
All right. So despite the flaws that this episode shows quite, clearly, I still like it. I still enjoy watching it for the reasons stated. So I'm going to give it a 7. How about that?
Well, I'm going to give He's a Monster a 9.99.
He's giving that to you.
I'm giving him that grade as a
Almost a
thank
10.
you. So what'd you say, Aaron? A 7?
Mm-hmm.
7-0.
7-0.
All right. Okay. Ron?
Yeah, I struggle sometimes because I find certain things in episodes that I love. And so my grades become more of an emotional response to the fact that I enjoyed something so much that I was willing to overlook
Right.
a lot of
But
the other things.
That's entertainment, isn't it? Your emotional response.
That is, yeah.
Everything
To some degree,
critically
yeah.
all the time. You just have to say, how did I respond to it?
But so I'm going to go higher. I'm going to give it an 8
Ooh.
because the entire idea of it I thought was really cool, and I could get past all the things that annoyed me, like the mating of Nomad and Sargon, and
Well, we did have some Pon farr in this episode too. Remember?
Yeah.
The whole Pon
and
farr.
I just liked Spock had so much game in it. I was just getting the biggest kick out of it. he had more game than Shatner, and Captain Kirk, because it was so subtle, and the things he said, were just so. And what I love too is the commander's reaction to everything he says. She gets all the hair stand up on her, in the background. She's like, one more step closer, she's gonna bone him.
Yeah, he was saying all the right things for sure.
Yeah, like when she comes out and she invites him. She's like, I'd like you to come to my quarters for dinner, or something. Or he says, and he's like, okay, or something. Then she stops herself. She's like, wait, would you please come to my quarters for dinner? Where she turns it into a seduction rather than, so she clearly makes her. And then the guards are standing right behind them.
Yeah, they're like,
so she never invited you over for dinner,
and she's so completely compromised that she's completely unaware, and Spock's like, are the guards also invited? Like, hey, wink, wink. I mean, and just her reaction is like, oh, yes. I just loved it. I just thought I got such a kick out of it that the whole thing was worth it for me just to see that whole dynamic play out. Then the James Bond aspect. So I'm giving it an 8.
There you go. Look at that.
Anthony Mark says that he bets I will say 5.
He bets. No, see, you can't say that because that could influence what your actual thing was. You should have said it after.
20 quadlutes on the newcomer.
You have to be honest. What were you going to get?
It was a 5. It's average. Yep. I debated on a 6, but I don't like it enough for a 6. 6 would have indicated it's above average, and I think it's just an average episode. It falls apart for me for a lot of the reasons I articulated in the captain's log.
So there was nothing redeeming about it for you?
Well, he says it's an average.
There was very little, to be honest. Other than the original concept, which I thought could have been really cool, as Aaron said, as a film. To have that space espionage with potential war and all that kind of stuff. Stealing military secrets. That was really cool. For a federation that says it's not military, they sure do a lot of military things.
Well, yeah. I mean, compare this one to Assignment Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they're both mission oriented,
right.
But this one was, to me, superior to Assignment Earth because Assignment Earth was so campy in so many ways. Whereas this one wasn't campy. It just suffered from silly technical mistakes, that they should have caught before they filmed it, or maybe they just didn't have time.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I did love is the cinematography in this. Jerry Finnerman's colors were amazing. There was one shot where I think it was when Kirk meets one of the guards, and there's like a hallway, and he says, guard that because they might try to break in or something like that. But it was all lit up in red. It was really, really cool looking because he had all that blue on him, and the colors really worked really well. I like that.
I've always loved the colors of Star Trek in general.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, I
And the
remember,
lighting, the film lighting. It's not just like floodlights on everybody where there's no shadows. They put dramatic shadows on people and stuff. I love
yeah,
that.
Mhm.
and it
It
wasn't
feels like
that
film.
Star Trek was one of the earlier shows that had color because I mean NBC with the Peacock and everything.
Hmm.
It was one of the first. Well, that Batman, because it was around '65 that they first had color. And so they were just having a ball with the reds and the blues and the greens and
Hmm.
and you could see them. That's why it worked so well on the bridge. I just even loved the color of the phaser beams coming out of the Enterprise or the phaser coming out of the gun. And
Hmm.
to me, all the colors on it were just so attractive to me as a little kid.
Yeah. Well, the Adventures of Superman had color in 1954.
Oh, it went color in that early? Did
Yeah.
it?
I think 1954 was the first
I
year color,
thought
and the Lone
Emerald,
Ranger too. The Lone Ranger went color in like 58.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, so it was a lot
It's,
earlier than I thought.
it's really interesting that how that decade of the 60s so influenced pop culture art. And you see it in the lighting in Star Trek, but like even someone like Basil Gogos doing his famous Filmland posters with all the just the weird coloring and
I
he
love his color
specifically
palette.
yeah he specifically told me that it was he was trying to capture that sort of 60s hippie vibe with those color schemes and
Mm.
stuff, the wild color schemes. So it's funny how that just sort of infiltrated so much of art and culture there for well half a decade
The
really.
great thing about Star Trek, though, is like where others went. Well, it never went campy like the can't like Batman did, and that was all the rage. Batman influenced Lost in Space, and Star Trek never compromised itself. The farthest it got was Shore Leave, probably. You
Mm. Yeah,
know,
with the rabbit costume. I mean, come
yeah,
on.
and all that kind of stuff. That was about as close as it got to anything Lost in Space. Like where Nimoy actually complained about that with the very first episode, the Man Trap. Because he felt like it's going to be some corny, campy TV show with a corny monster that
Monster of the
sucks the
Week.
soul out of it. Because Nimoy, wanted to be a serious actor, and I wonder if that complaint really led somewhat to them writing more serious science fiction-y kind of episodes. Not all of them, but
Well, I brought this up to Graham before the show started just to kind of give relevance to our scores on this episode. This is I think it was IMBD that I looked. This is the highest rated episode of the third season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like 70 a rating of like 76%.
What was
And
Spectre of the Gun?
it was 67%.
But I could see why.
No, this is an 8.4.
On IMBD.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was looking at some place that had like a percentage rating for each episode that I thought it was kind of interesting. I can't remember the website, but and Tholian Web was the second highest rated. It was also like 72, and everything else was kind of in the anywhere from mid 50s up to somewhere in the high 60s. But so there you go.
Well, let's see.
IMBD gives it 8.5. That's a good score. Ron feels justified. Look at him. Captain Commander Balls has got it together.
Sub commander.
Sub commander.
All right. Yeah. All right. Enterprise Incident has an 8.4.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Spectre Gun was a 7.2. Day of the Dove is a 7.7. Tholian Web is an 8.0.
Okay. Yeah.
So you might be right. So far, there's nothing.
Yeah,
to beat that.
maybe there's some there's some maybe it's not getting the credit some of the episodes deserve for the third season, because when you think of the third season, you almost have a bias towards it because there are so many bad ones.
Yeah.
I've been
guilt by association with the third season.
Right. I've been pleasantly surprised so far because I didn't even own the DVD set. I had first and second season. I never even bought the third because I was just like, it was in my mind that every episode was so crappy. But I got it because we were doing the reviews, And so, and now we're watching these, and I'm like, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Oh, that was better than I
My
expected.
imagination, or does the third season seem like, when I think, like you mentioned, the Tholian web, it seems like, I don't know, something about the third season seems like they were just so much farther out in space where there wasn't, I don't know, it just seems murkier and different in the
Yeah.
third season. Like,
Well, I think part of that is the tonal quality of the series. Like, uh, uh, what's his name? Roddenberry came back and it was more hands-on as a producer. He took out the humor that was so prevalent in season 2 because he hated that, and he wanted to get back into start more dramatic, action-packed series. And the lighting got darker, particularly compared to the second season.
See, I
So-
thought he bailed on the third season, but it was the second season where he bailed and then came
Yeah.
back on the third.
maybe that's what I was subconsciously registering then, because
Yeah.
I always felt like the third
Yeah.
season seemed like they were so far out in space that these things that were happening weren't, I don't know. Some of the first and second season, they all kind of tie together, like they're all part of this one area of the galaxy where they're sort of all interlinked. But this season seems like,
Yeah.
like Spock's brain is just so far out on some planetoid where,
Right.
just in some remote corner that nobody knows about. There's nothing connecting it to the, I don't know. They just, or even the Federation. It's just, I don't know, just something about it.
Yes, and we have a treat next week because yes, we will be watching the lowest rated season 3 episode, according to IMDb and according to Graham Nolan.
And according
I'm
to
not a fan of that one at all. Oh God.
Sub Commander Balls doesn't like it.
Yeah,
Aaron's right of statement doesn't like it.
I can't tell you the last time I saw that episode because, like, even when I was a kid, if I looked in the TV guide, that was a day I went out and played baseball. You know,
I didn't watch
I
it either.
was
Even
not
the
gonna.
fact that they use that lawyer Melvin Gorley or whatever his name
Belli.
is,
Melvin Belli.
Bella, like his acting is so god awful.
Oh,
We'll save
and the
it for next
kids, those damn kids.
Uh,
Oh,
week. Those meddling kids.
yeah.
it's like watching the Goonies. Oh my gosh, when's this babysitting going to be over?
They're crying. Look, they're crying.
Yeah, and even the footage of them playing on that set
Yeah.
is so lame. It's just, I mean,
Well, they can't write kids, and that's the thing is, having kids play, in these sci-fi things, it's like no kid ever plays like that, ever. It's just stupid, and it comes off as disingenuous.
yeah. I mean, I get the idea. Well, here we are talking about next week. Let's save it for next week.
Yeah. Okay.
But seriously, I mean, we get all into it. But,
I know. Yeah. Fred was the showrunner, but Roddenberry had a lot of pull in the third season. That he gave to Gene L. Kuhn entirely for the second season.
Well, I was also under the impression that they all knew the show was going to. I mean, they didn't even think there was going to be a third season, and then suddenly there was. And you just wonder, again, I had this impression going into this that all the cast didn't care. No one gave a rip. They were just, it was like they were all lame ducks waiting for the season to be over because they knew it was it. But, there's been some good performances so far in these episodes. So I don't think that's true either. But I kind of had that in my mind.
look at what Lynn Green wrote.
This? And the one that should be making that jerking motion is supposed to be playing with 6-year-olds. What's that in reference to?
The children shall lead.
Oh.
Oh,
I think she's been turned to the dark side of the show.
yeah, I think Sub Commander Balls has finally drug her down.
You mean Iran of Groinus
Yeah, and Sub Commander Balls.
and Kirkcock and Queer Amani?
Queer Amani.
You're killing him. I kill you.
Oh, that's another thing about this episode.
Yeah.
He's like,
Spock,
Oh.
you traitor. I'll kill you, Spock. I
kill you. I know, just before the commercial break.
Yeah.
I kill you.
It's like, come on, man.
That, you know what? That's my favorite part in this episode. It is part of my it is part of my lexicon. Like if I'm yawning in the morning, I'm like, I kill you. I've been doing that to Julie for 40 years.
See, mine is I'm Kirok. I do that all the time. I'm Kirok.
Oh man.
And it's just
On that
that pause, that pregnant pause.
Yes.
Before the end syllable comes. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
I love it. I love that one.
Yeah.
All right,
it
gang.
was-
We will see you next week. I think Anna will be back. She's out hiking with her family in the
She's
mountains.
not hiking right now, you know. She's in a tent.
She's in a tent.
on
Okay.
far.
Having some ponfar.
Dun, 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 dun.
So you guys got to do your homework. If we got to watch next week's episode, you got to watch it too.
Mhm.
So, we got to spread the hate.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to
I
make
gotta
my
do it on
94-year-old mother watch it. So
Well, you can't make her give you Cliff Notes. So
no.
you got to
There's
watch
so
it too.
much
Well, I'm going to watch it with her, but I'm making her watch it with me. So
All right. Well, if you
I wonder
guys,
if there's anybody out there who loves this episode. That episode.
no,
Next week.
I don't think
Gotta
so.
be someone.
If you don't watch it next week, folks, I kill you.